Hi, Auntie Mercy. Welcome and thank you for having this public conversation we could be having in private. I'm trying to share some of our family's experiences with DNA testing with my small but growing my Black genealogist audience. And I thought maybe we could start, other than me thanking you, by having you introduce yourself, however you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, Adwoa. Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story with you. My name is Mercy Arhin Ferguson. I was originally born in Ghana, and I've been in America for quite a while. I'm a nurse by profession, and I have three children, young adults, you know, and it's surprising how they've grown so quick. But I'm proud of all of everything. And Adwoa is my daughter, in that she's not directly my daughter, she's my cousin's daughter. But in Ghana, where we come from, your cousin is your sister. So she's if your sister's daughter is your daughter. So that's how I see her. She's my daughter. That's how she refers to me, as auntie. So that's it. I am currently in Maryland. I moved when I came to US. I've always lived in the DMV area. So I'm in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. All of my children were born and raised in Maryland.
It's been at least a year where I asked you if you'd be open to taking a DNA test. We took an ancestry DNA test. And I've never actually asked you why you were inspired to do so or why you said yes. I'm curious to hear from you in your own words what inspired you to take an ancestry DNA test when I asked you to.
Okay, that's interesting. Initially, when you asked me, if you recall, it took me a while to participate. Initially, I was iffy. I was like, what what do I need to know about myself that I don't need to know? I thought about it, and I went to ask your mom, actually. I thought it was a long process and it was going to be tedious and it was going to tell me nothing that I didn't already know about myself. But I respected you and I didn't want to disappoint you. But I also didn't want to do anything that I wasn't comfortable doing. So I went to your mom, who I trust very much. I know she wouldn't lead me into danger or to a rabbit hole if it wasn't a safe thing to do. So she explained to me what you were all about and how this process was very simple. And she gave me some highlights, the advantages, how it will help us all, and things like that. And she even told me her mother, who my auntie, my father's sister, has done it. So I was like, oh, if Auntie Mercy, her name is Mercy too, has done it, well, then I can do it too. It has to be because she is very knowledgeable and she wouldn't do anything that she didn't believe in. So that is where I started. So when you asked me, I was iffy. I asked your mom. She explained the whole process and the benefits and gave me examples of people who have already participated. And then it brought up my interest in to participate in it, to learn more about myself.
Because we've never actually talked about that. We just went through the motions. So
Yes.
even to hear you say that explicitly. So how did you feel when you learned about some of the specific DNA connections and branches of our extended family? And when I say extended family, we're talking about people who are living in the United States, the Caribbean, Canada, whose more recent ancestors were enslaved Africans or descendants of enslaved Africans. How did you feel when you learned about some of these connections? Because I don't think in Ghana you grew up thinking about having those kinds of connections in the world.
Exactly. I did not think about having connections anywhere. I knew all my relatives. I thought I knew all my relatives. It was very exciting. And this may come up later, but growing up and with the slave trade and everything, we were made to understand that some specific people, individuals were those, or families who were sent or who participated in the slave trade. And I didn't think my family or my ancestry was involved in, were ever taken away as slaves. People may, the people who were taken over may be those who owed some money and couldn't pay, and therefore they were taken away as slaves. Or people from the lower class was taken away as slaves. So I did not think that, and from where we came from, we didn't think that our family would be involved in, or they will also make sure if they come to fight with you, if there's a war and you are conquered, the conquered will be taken away as slaves. And we were not, I thought we were not involved, and my family was not involved in it. So it was very amazing to know where my family extended to, or who is part of my family at the time.
And when you speak about classes, maybe it helps to delve deeper into the details of your family in terms of maybe not even socioeconomic classes, but I think in the West, the idea of princes, princesses, queens is thought of in maybe the European, like Queen of England perspective. But you come from a royal family. The Akans are a matrilineal society. So maybe it would help our listeners to understand what you mean because there was local domestic slavery. You talked about wars, just like in the Roman Empire, all of these parts of the world. If there was a war and people were captured, these types of things would happen. And so maybe you can share what you meant.
My mother is also from the royal family, and so is my father from the royal family. So it's in the upper class in terms of royal family. So how could our ancestors be taken away as a slave? No, it wouldn't happen. So it was very interesting to learn, and I can't wait to learn more about how this is all connected to me, to see the new family members, that the long lost family members that I didn't know, and they didn't know me either. And it's interesting to know that you have, and part of the reason I participated in it after your mom talked to me about it was also because I knew I was going to learn about myself, and I was going to help other people also close some gaps in their lives, in their history, what they didn't know, and I'm going to learn what I didn't know. Because sometimes history is not passed on completely. They tell you part of it because they forgot or they didn't want to share or things like that. Keeping history was not kept well. I think doing the DNA is going to help me learn more about myself and about other those who are related to me. And I'm sure there are other people out there who also want to know where they came from, how it all started, and things like that.
We're having the spanDNA families, and spanDNA stands for starting point, Akoma Ntwasu, which is an Eden Crest symbol, linked heart. And so a place to start where we can link our hearts together using DNA. And it's a Transatlantic Genealogy Summit. So we're talking about coming from Ghana, and you're living on the other side of the Atlantic, the transatlantic slave trade being a starting point of us trying to build connections, or they're not the only connections we've been able to make or the only connections we will make, but we're trying to have a twist on a family reunion where we can identify the Ghanaians in our family who, like you, were willing to take a DNA test so that we could learn more, not just about ourselves, but especially for those of us, and I say us, even though I was born in North America, but those of us living in North America and have more of a day-to-day interaction, maybe peripheral, intimate relationships with other people of African descent who have a more recent history in America, to connect in ways that we never could have imagined. And so some people take these tests just to learn about themselves, many of the Ghanaians I asked to take the test was to see what we could contribute and offer to those who don't have access to their African roots. And in the process, we ended up discovering that we didn't know everything about our own African roots and also how far those roots ended up spreading. Like you were talking about not recognizing there was a connection to the transatlantic slave trade. And so why is it important to you personally to come from Maryland to Atlanta to invest the time, the energy to be in the space that like we've never seen before? We're creating it for the first time. We don't know who's going to show up other than the people who have registered. Yeah.
I love family reunions. After the wedding, you want to go back. You want another wedding. It's like, when is the next party? When is the next party? I love family reunions. And this to me is like a family reunion. It is a family reunion. I'm going to see those I know already and those I do not know already, and to learn from them and learn about them and to share who I am to them, and they will share who they are to me. So I cannot wait. I am excited. I already put in my request to be off that weekend.
And so I also want to talk a bit about reflecting on heritage and identity. One of the things that inspired me to start this enterprise, the spanDNA enterprise, is I didn't grow up seeing myself as Black. That just wasn't the identity I grew up feeling defined me. And then you move to America and you realize it doesn't matter how you see yourself, that society finds you in a certain way. It doesn't matter how you grew up or you came from, you're Black, that's it. And so I think my parents raised me in such a way, I grew up in a spiritual household where my soul was really my true identity, this part of me that can't be changed. And everything else is changeable. I'm curious about you growing up in Ghana. We didn't actually talk about which part of Ghana, so maybe we can talk about that when you answer this question. But how was family heritage and ancestry, the ancestors, how was that a part of your household, your life, your day-to-day connections? You talked about our relationship, but for you growing up, what was family? What was heritage? What was identity?
Which part of Ghana did I grow up in? I grew up in the Western region. That I was born in the Western region. My family is from the Central region, but I was raised in the Western region, where the Central region is Cape Coast, Elmina, Salcon. That's where my family is from. But through work and marriage, my parents lived in the Western region, which is secondly Takoradi. So I lived in Takoradi for the most part. For anybody who wants to know, Takoradi is the third largest city in Ghana, where the harbor is. So there's a harbor in Takoradi. And so my childhood was mainly on Takoradi. And I went to school in Cape Coast for my high school and came back to Takoradi and back and forth. And my adulthood, a little bit of my adulthood was in Accra, but that was not too long before I came to America. Anyway, in my family, everybody is your sister. Everybody is your sister, your brother. There's so many family members that up until very recently, I really didn't know the exact relationship. All I know is that we live with them, our sisters and our brothers, the cousins. Those are very important. And my mom has this phrase that says, "Nimpa hia," which means human beings are important.
Mm.
And you can have money, but in times of need, you can't use the money. You need a human being. So everybody is family. You come there, you are going to be comfortable, you're going to be fed. My dad believed in unity, oneness. So when you are in the house, we eat together, we do everything together. We have stories, and with age, I've forgotten some of my stories, and sometimes this person will come and say, "Hey, do you remember this? Do you remember that?"
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So with that unity Every human beings are important. And with those in the back of my mind, family has always been important. And as I came into this country and see the nuclear family, my child, my mom, my dad, and just the children, they don't have any cousins and I see how sad it is that when in times of need, they have to go to a neighbor, call on a neighbor or a co-worker, things like that. They don't have a real family related, a blood relative that they can call on to help them in any way. It's all just the nuclear family. So extended family to me is very important.
And you experienced having that growing up in Ghana.
And I experienced having that. There's so many people in the house who are all family.
Mm-hmm. And what about just the nature of were ancestors spoken of? Like even the culture around family, how is it different in Ghana than you see it being maybe for like my generation, like your children, me, my siblings who were born here in North America? When you think about, oh, when I was growing up in Ghana, this is what my children don't have.
Yes. In our home, growing up in Ghana, in the living room are pictures. It's like a museum, if you remember. Grandmother, grandfather, great grandmother, great aunt who cared for me, who raised me. Pictures of everybody framed on the wall in the living room there. And then you look so much like this, your uncle, you look like this person. You go and then sometimes you go to on vacation, you go to another family member's house to spend the vacation, that family member's house. And we are named according to those who have passed. And we all have different names. We have the Christian name or our English name, and we are named. For me, my Ghana name is Mami Fosua. I was named after my father's sister, actually your grandmother, your grandmother. Yeah, I was named after your grandmother, and she was named after somebody else, her great aunt, things like that. Our ancestors are always connected to us. They are always brought into life by one way or the other.
And so what do you think our ancestors would say if they could see us reconnecting through this effort, even the ones whose names we don't know or the stories we don't know?
I know for sure my mom and dad would be very amazed with modern day technology and be very happy that we are connected because family and unity is their number one thing. That is what they wanted. So they'll be very pleased that we've been able to reconnect and learn what they couldn't teach us or what they didn't know.
And when you say what they didn't teach us and what they didn't know, that's speaking to these elements of the diaspora piece.
Especially for my mother, her parents died very early in her teenage years. And for her, the extended family took all the property, came to grab the property of her parents, including some important papers. So there was some vital information that she didn't even have. So doing this is helping me know things that she didn't know. She wasn't told. It was lost in the process. So she will be very happy.
Nice.
My dad will too.
Nice. I think I'm curious as to what role you think storytelling plays in helping us rediscover and strengthen these new or rekindled bonds. Because you even talked about the stories you couldn't recall. But what is the role of storytelling?
The storytelling is going to help us pass on what we know to our children. And if they remember, we'll pass on to their children. It will help us connect the dots. Sometimes I told you I have 3 children, especially, and children will say, oh, and mom, we didn't know this. And how come we didn't tell us? Sometimes I think they're not interested. And 2, I may have forgotten to tell them, or they were not, pretty much I thought they were not interested. And I think they have become more interested as they've gotten older, and they're learning more about themselves and about the importance of family. And it's like, why didn't you tell us this? Why didn't we know that? And sometimes I may have told them, but they may have forgotten.
Mm.
I may not have told them because I didn't think they were interested. But storytelling is very important. There's a time for it. And when they're ready, you tell them. When they're not ready, you write it down. Put it somewhere we can pass it on.
And for us now, we'll have these videos and these gatherings and these pictures. So speaking of your children, the younger generations, future generations and legacy, what do you hope younger generations, whether they're Ghanaians, Americans, Caribbean, will gain from this kind of family reunion for those who choose to participate?
I think they're going to learn the importance of family. The more they come around family, they will learn the importance of family, and they're going to learn where they came from, well, where their parents came from, and who their parents are, and it's going to help hold them. And they will learn about themselves and understand why they do certain things a certain way, and where they came from, and who they are. And you know what? And even like I said, history, some information were not given to us, or through science and poor, yes, lack of medicine or lack of history. We don't know a lot of about medical history. And I think this DNA is going to help us know who exactly we are. It's not just the outer person, but what's in us, who we are, what's our medical history. It's also going to help us.
What advice would you give to someone who is hesitant to take a DNA test or explore their ancestry? And I want you to focus on the community you feel closest to. Let's even just think about relatives or other Ghanaians, whether they're in Ghana or living here in the diaspora.
First, and like I said at the beginning, I was kind of iffy. I would tell anybody there's nothing to it. All you need is saliva. And if you drink water, you will have saliva. That's all you need. And it is very simple. And it's not going to do any harm to you. And it's not going to cost you so much. If anything, the benefits that you're going to get about knowing about yourself and who you really are, and it's more than the money that you pay. Also, you're going to help somebody know about themselves. You're going to help other people close the loop on who they are. So it's a win-win situation. You help yourself and you help other people too.
Thank you. How do you think initiatives like this, like the spanDNA Families efforts, can help bridge the gap between the African continent and the diaspora for present and future generations? And actually, I want to add something, because there are these things we don't actually talk about, like the prejudices that exist, and we'll just be specific, in Ghana, about African Americans, or the prejudices, or because I've been speaking to a lot of my friends and family members that African Americans will have towards Africans who have moved here and live a very separate life from maybe the African American community. But rarely do we sit together and have these conversations, the African living in North America and the African American whose ancestors built the America we live in today. And so what can this do? Can it make any difference?
I think it's going to help us learn about ourselves, to learn to know that we are all one. We are one person. We all came from the same place. It doesn't matter where you were born or where you grew up. We are one. Our heritage, ancestors came from the same place. Some may have come here voluntarily. Some may not have come here voluntarily. But at the end of the day, we are one, and we have to be one. And I think through initiatives like this, we're going to be more aware of who we are and how we got here.
Thank you. Let's see. Do you think you'd be open to sharing a story about your parents or grandparents that reflects the values or traditions of our family?
I may have said this story already about my mom who believes that human beings are important. That means human beings are important. Therefore, she does not send anybody away. You come to her home, you are part of their household, you are family. Like I said, we grew up knowing that everybody is our sister, brother, our cousin, our nephew, our niece. It's always talking about the unity, being one. Oh, the so and so your cousin. He would say, your cousin, which means my cousin. That's
Your brother, your sister.
you're my brother or my sister, this person. They pretty much they reinforced doing being together, being one, taking valuing the value of a human being was more important to them. And that is how we grew up.
Mhm.
That is what was all said to us all the time. Human beings are important. Human beings are valued. They're more valued than money or gold. Is.
And if you could speak directly to an African American who recently discovered their Ghanaian roots through a DNA test, what would you say to welcome them into the family?
Means welcome. You are cherished. You are loved. You've come into a family that you are really of value to. And like in Ghana, we say, welcome. Ghanaians are always have their arms ready to embrace you. We're very hospitable and we can't wait to learn from you and you learn from us. We're very excited and we can't wait to know more of you and you know more. Welcome to the Ghanaian family.
And I'd like to share as part of that welcome, I'm appreciative that you've accepted to facilitate, even though it's still in development, we will be inviting any cousins who are connected to your paternal branch of the family, which is interesting because traditionally you belong to your mother's family, but we are connected through your paternal line. And so for you to welcome people who would like to be named and the names that are part of our family.
You can't wait. I cannot wait for May, the weekend of May 23rd. Yes, I cannot wait. And see my newfound family.
And so now I've got a baby card in the background. I don't know if it's getting picked up, but I want to share some images with you. I don't know if I've gone through any of these with you. And so this is to illustrate some of the things we've been able to discover. And yes, let me see how this goes because I didn't test it out ahead of time. So can you see this picture of my grandmother and your great
Yeah, I can.
Yes. Oh no, she's your grandma. This is my grandmother and your grandmother.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have, yes, especially I have seen the one on the right.
You have seen that
on my right. Yes. That was in the living room in my father's home. The left one has
that one. The left one is of your namesake, my grandmother.
Oh, wow. That's a new picture. I've never seen this picture.
I think it was at a family funeral. I think it was when my mother's paternal grandfather passed away. And this picture so in the bottom left represents my maternal line and your father's maternal line. And based on the green, based on my mom taking a test called a mitochondrial test. And as a nurse, you'll know what mitochondrial DNA is, where this connects you to your mother's line. So for your father, it would have been his mother's line. And so because my mom and I took a mitochondrial test, we were able to trace the part of the human family tree that our Grace Amba Kotraba Taylor line belongs to. And so the haplogroup is like that branch of the family tree. And L2A1 is the group we belong to. And all of these green arcs are your father and my grandmother's maternal ancestral lineage. That's part of that community. And so because of that test, we've been able to identify 6 generations of descendants of the Taylor side, Grace Taylor's side, who are connected by the same female ancestors. And we have within our family group 13 of our relatives that are connected to that picture we showed. And one of these pictures is from my grandmother's Thanksgiving service a year after she passed. And this is a map that shows through that mitochondrial test, Eve is mitochondrial Eve. And our haplogroup, L2, is one of the original branches of the human family tree. And the places we ended up after leaving the cradle of civilization of humanity, you can see, are in the northern part of Ghana, the Sudan, and the DRC. And so our branch, that's the Grace Taylor branch of our family. And so they even tell us the haplogroup L2 is part of the L cluster of haplogroups, which has been concretely characterized as representing the original human mitochondrial lineage. Haplogroup L2A is found in Africa. This haplogroup dates to approximately 55,000 years ago and is detected in highest frequency in Northwest and Central Africa. And more work is going to be needed, but isn't that kind of a cool thing to learn about ourselves?
It is, yeah, it's amazing. I would never have thought that I had family in DNC.
Can you hear? Did you hear any music?
No, I don't. No.
Okay, let me see if I can. What I'll do, let me see if it provides any. So this company provides you with a video after you take a mitochondrial test and explains it to you. And even though my name is on this video actually applies to all of our relatives who share mitochondrial DNA with us. So it's just an interesting resource that's there. And then here, this is me. This is my mother. And so you would be, this is my direct line. And so you would hold the same place as my mother here. So this is me.
I can see it.
And then here is my mom. This is my maternal line. This, my grandmother, Grace Ambakotraba Taylor, your grandmother, Ekwa Inisa. And so based on the DNA tests we've had people in our family take, we already knew about your great grandmother, but all of these people who continue, the unknown people, even though we don't know their names, we can find more of our connections to our diaspora relatives because of the tests that you have taken, my mom has taken. These are the tools that I'm using to find these connections.
That's amazing.
And you and I haven't actually looked at any of that together. And that was just scratching at the surface. But what I'm trying to do, or what I've done, is create books with this information in it to walk people through their own DNA results and seeing who we connect to. So I wanted to show you a picture of another one of our relatives, our DNA relatives. So we were looking at this and we looked at that. So all of these people are connected to Ekwa Inisa. Right? And here's your father.
Wow. Yes, that's
right?
my father.
In the bottom right. This is a picture. The two ladies on the right are connected to our family through Abraham Poppy Sims' line.
Wow.
Through
And where are they?
one is in Sonoy, Georgia. The other one is in Michigan. And
Wow.
one of them is registered for the summit, and so are you. So you will definitely be meeting one of your cousins at the summit.
Wonderful.
There'll be
Can't wait.
many others, but this is what I wanted to be able to share with you in terms of the things we haven't yet discussed.
Okay. And I cannot wait to from May to come.
Yeah.
From May to come, see my long lost cousins.
And so between now and then, maybe I can facilitate a call between you and one of those sisters so that you guys can have a preliminary just hi, hello. And then it will truly be a reunion when we come together in May.
Yeah, sounds
Awesome.
like a plan.
Auntie, I thank you so much for your willingness to
You
have
very
this
much.
conversation openly and to support me as I've taken steps to build something that I don't think has ever really been done before.
Yes. And anything new is a challenge, and you've done so well.
Thank you, Auntie.
Keep pushing.
I will.
It's exciting. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving me the time to share my story.
Thank you for sharing it. Have a great night.
You do the same and say hello to the kids and your